Welcome everyone to YouTube Live. I'm John Adolfi, your host, and we're going to ask the important and really provocative question, where do we come from, apes, aliens, or Adam? Today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the iron pot and coal. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with this and you want to jump off, not the live, but the recorded live that we're doing here right now, there is or you can do it afterwards, there's going to be a link in the description that where I interview Dr. Baugh, who is currently the owner of the Iron Pot and Coal. And you're going to want to watch that 4.5-minute video because the interview is just awesome. And you get a chance to see the original in all its dimensions, inside, out, all around, upside down. It's fascinating. So let's go right straight to what this is all about. This right here is a replica. It is a third-generation replica. What do I mean by that? Well, what that means is that the original iron cup, which I'll tell you about the story in just 2 seconds, was molded once and then molded a second time, and then it was inserted into this diorama, so to speak. The cup itself is exactly like that. I've held the cup, and in that video you'll be able to see it. And it's about that size. Now, here's what's remarkable about this cup. It was found in coal, according to 2 men who witnessed it coming out of the coal in 1912 in Sulphur Springs, Arkansas. Okay? Now, what I'm going to read to you is an affidavit that was sworn and notarized in 1948. So this was 36 years later. And we're going to come back to that, why that's so significant. Because there is one problem with this story, and I'll explain in just a second. But let's hear the testimony of Frank Kennard as he gave it to the notary in 1948. He said, and I quote, "While I was working in the municipal electric plant in Thomas, Oklahoma, in 1912, I came upon a solid chunk of coal which was too large to use. I broke it with a sledgehammer. The pot fell from the center, leaving the impression or mold of the pot in the piece of coal. Jim Stull, an employee of the company, witnessed the breaking of this coal and saw the pot fall out. I traced the source of coal and found that it came from the Wilburton, Oklahoma mines. Sworn to me in Sulphur Springs, Arkansas, this day, 27th of November, 1948, and her name was Julia Eldred, the notary public in Benton County." Interesting. Why is this so remarkable? Here's the reason. This is coal. This is the real thing right here. It's a chunk of coal. Coal, according to evolution, according to modern geology, is formed, and it can vary some, but for the most part, what you're going to see is 300 million years ago, through swamps that became compressed and eventually turned into coal. It's a slow process, and it happened a long, long time ago. Okay. If the majority of coal formed 300 million years ago, and according to evolution and paleontology, and that means that humans and the formation of coal were separated by approximately 297 to 295 million years. Iron didn't come about being used like this for around, let's just say, a couple of thousand years ago, just for the sake of discussion here, okay? So the question is, what is a human artifact like this doing in coal? Now, the question could also be said, or the criticism can be said that, well, this is all a lie, because if you go along with modern geology, this cannot exist in coal. It's impossible. A human artifact inside 300 million year old coal? You know what that would mean? That would mean that A, humans lived 300 million years ago, or that our understanding of geology needs to be tweaked, Here's the problem with this. We don't have the two chunks of coal that this came out of, or however many chunks there were, to show the impression of this in the coal. We don't have it. All we have is the testimony of two individuals, one of which went and had it notarized 36 years after the event. Now, here's the question. If, in fact, he faked this, they both did, as a joke or as a way of proving creationism or whatever it was that motivated them, obviously you want to get some kind of notoriety. That really didn't happen. It only happened years after they passed away. And why would someone perpetuate a lie for 36 years when the people that maybe were involved with this were so limited as far as family, friends, and maybe there was a news article about this at one time, but it was like, who cares at one point? If anybody cared, it would have been about for 15 minutes. And then 36 years later, they're going to go before a notary, not a letter that they wrote or a small booklet or part of a book that was published, but before a notary, and stated that I saw this happen, and this is exactly the way it happened. Do you think somebody who's lying would do that? And for what reason would they do that? Now, granted, this isn't 1977 or 2007. This was in 1948 that he notarized this. Just think about the time frame. 3 years after World War II, and he's going to go ahead and lie about finding this, putting it to bed once and for all that I really did, when he didn't. If he did find it in coal, like he said he did, then we got a problem, because this is no longer 300 million years old, because there's no way we're going to admit that humans lived 300 million years ago. I mean, biological beings just got their start, let alone to include all of humanity back then that had the ingenuity to be able to create iron and then fashion it into a cup. Again, it's got to boil down to either Kennard was lying through his teeth, including his friend, or if they did tell the truth, and I'm going to take that position, that they did tell the truth, then coal did not form 200 million years ago, 300 million years ago. What this ends up becoming? Two theories. Number one, that coal can form quickly under certain circumstances, and this coal pot is somewhere around 100, 200, 1,000 years old, and got caught up into a geological process that formed to coal. But the problem is that these coal seams that they're utilizing in Oklahoma, would they really date modern? Would the geology suggest that something modern happened there? If that's the case, then we got to go to creationism. And that's a bad word for some people out there. Some of you could care less or tell me more. Creationism is the idea that this was formed before the worldwide flood, which happened in 4,400 years ago, 2348 BC, and that this was caught up in the worldwide flood, that coal was created quickly under extraordinary catastrophic circumstances over a year's time, and this got caught up, and this was what fell out of that chunk of coal. To me, that makes the most sense. To some would argue that, and I get it, okay? Again, I'm going to encourage you, down in the description, there is a link to the Carl Baugh and my interview with him that shows the original in all its dimensions, and he adds some very, very interesting additional information on this. Now, the question is, has this ever happened before? Are there other artifacts found in coal? Now, I don't have a whole parade of them, but I do have one more. It's called the Newton-Anderson bell. This bell was found in 1944. A 10-year-old boy went down into his basement, and he found a chunk of coal that he couldn't get into the furnace, because that's what everybody heated with back in right around the turn, right after the World War II or so, until gas heat was employed. And so he went and broke this large coal piece apart and found a brass bell that fell out. Brass bell fell out of coal. Coal pot fell out of coal. Could it be really that our whole geological time frame has really been nothing more than Charles Lyell and Hutton and Buffon and those who came after him were actually trying to get away from a biblical timeline and the Bible itself, the biblical narrative of geology? Not that the Bible is a science book, but it outlines the event that created all this geology that we look at today, and we naturally assume it was natural, long periods of time through the process of uniformitarianism. That won't explain these two artifacts if they're proven to be true. Now, is Newton lying? Is that 10-year-old boy that held on to this for a long time, not even knowing what he had, until later on in life when somebody said, "That is a pre-flood artifact, Dad"? Oh, really? I spoke to Mr. Newton in 2007. He had been offered $10,000 for this. The Institute for Creation Research, John Morris, held on to it for 9 years and did all sorts of testing on it. We'll do a video exclusively on this in the future. But what I'd like to do is show you a polygraph test in 2007 was given to Newton Anderson. This was about a year after I spoke to him. Let me read you what it says. Newton R. Anderson voluntarily agreed to take a polygraph examination. Prior to the test, Mr. Anderson signed a form stating he was taking the test voluntarily. This document has been retained in the examiner's file. Mr. Anderson is approximately 73 years old. He has the medical conditions of narcolepsy and catalepsy, which he developed at a very early age. Mr. Anderson is currently taking medication, Ritalin, and also medication for high blood pressure. The main issue under consideration was to determine whether or not Mr. Anderson was truthful in his responses to the relevant test questions. Here they are. You ready? The following relevant test questions were used during the examination. Did you find the bell in question encased in coal as you described? Response: yes. Is the bell you sold to David Wurtzel the identical one you found encrusted in coal? Response: yes. Did you give false information as to how you found the bell in question? Response: no. At this time, a polygraph examination was administered to determine Mr. Anderson's truthfulness to the relevant test questions. Examiner's opinion: Mr. Newton R. Anderson was truthful to the relevant test questions. No deception was indicated. Signed, L. Stan Fulmer. L. Stan Fulmer Incorporated. There you have it. If these two artifacts prove to be true, and they are corroborating with each other in the sense that they were found in coal, then friends, guess what? We got a problem. Now, is this all of a sudden going to unravel the geological theory or truth as it's being taught in colleges, high schools, seen on television and in the various programs, in the museums? Absolutely not. But you, my friend, have the ability to ask yourself the question, did we come from apes, aliens, or Adam? And if we came from Adam, then this story makes sense, that the pot and coal and the Anderson-Newton bell were actually found in coal that was produced during the worldwide flood 4,400 years ago. All right, thank you very much for attending. Go ahead and check out the link in the description to the Dr. Carl Baugh interview, who currently owns the coal pot, and we'll have more to say on this in future. And for those of you that would like to get text when we go live, not just an alert through YouTube, but a text. We do giveaways, and whenever I have something really cool or interesting, people get text maybe once every other day or a couple of times a week. Here it is. And this is only good for United States and Canada, and it is free. 315-509-9075. take a screenshot, go ahead and text and just say, hey, John, and I'll say back, hey, Bob, hey, Mary, how are you? Welcome to the museum text platform. You guys have a great day. Thank you for watching.